Welcome to Money for Economics, episode 8. In this episode, we'll talk about tourism. If you want to get in touch, my email is in the top left corner of the screen. Okay, so we'll talk about tourists coming to our country and tourists going out of our country. First, let's go to these going out. So, our tourists basically in the country they can live without money because it's a money free economy. But when they go out to another country, they do need to have a certain money to pay for their vacation and stuff like that. So in ideal circumstances, there would be a national fund set up to actually give our tourists money to go to other countries. Um, if our currency is not taken, either due to sanctions or due to being considered as not having any value, then our tourists need foreign currency. One big thing that artists need to be able to do is to be able to go to our embassy in case of emergency, to hide from, I don't know, from uh, a natural disaster, or hiding from for the sake of saving their lives. So, this of course will require a system to evacuate all these embassies around the world, and the people who are taking shelter in the embassies. One another thing we can assume is that domestic airlines will offer free flights to our citizens, and then maybe there's not enough aircraft to go, to go to every country in the world like several times a week or several times a month, but maybe it should be sufficient to have one flight in a month, or one or several flights in a month, or I think a good number would be one flight a week. Um, the national airline department in the government will determine where all flights go to. They'll be calculated basically, and then the flights will have to go there. So they'll be where the flight is going will be predetermined sometime before. We also have to consider that our domestic airline needs aviation fuel. It can get free aviation fuel in the country, but if you're trying to go, let's say, from Europe to China, you're gonna need to um, refuel, let's say, halfway, like in India or something like that. There's that to consider as well. Archers going out, they can get free RVs. They can rent RVs to go out to drive to other countries. This is probably very popular if you're talking about Europe. They can also go by railway, and obviously partner countries or border countries. There can be agreements between two countries that share a border as to having a rail line, basically a railroad line, going from something like their capital to another capital, stuff like that. So that has to be pre negotiated. Yeah. So our tourists coming in, obviously they're not gonna be they're not gonna they're gonna have the same rights as our people, so they're not gonna have to pay for hotels for residents. They're not gonna have to be paid for food and stuff like that. So the best thing to do is realistically just to charge an entry fee per person and also per time. You can assume that some people are coming in for a few days, some people are coming in for like 3 months over the summer, so you have those differences. And obviously, if they're paying in euros or something like that, that those euros will be reinvested, either for aviation fuel or for our tourists to use abroad. We won't take away hosting a lot of coastal countries on the Mediterranean. There's a big sort of culture of being a host. So basically, renting out your spare lodging to tourists. We don't want to ban that, but you have to consider that if tourists can go to, like, let's say, public hotels built by the government, or yeah, so if they can do that, they may not want to go to private hosts. So things foreign tourists can do in our country. So as I said, they're going to have the exact same services as citizens, and they're all going to be free of charge. They're gonna have access to free residing in hotels, apartments, stuff like that. As long as those objects are public, they'll have free food. Obviously, they may enter to get like free food or alcohol, just like entering 1 or 2 days. That shouldn't be banned. There shouldn't really be any quotas on that. I think it's best to not really prevent these foreign tourists from taking with them food and alcohol. So if their country also has laws which bans importing food and alcohol by private persons over like private well, over sort of these general border crossings, then that plays a role too. So one form of tourism is medical tourism. There's a lot of people that migrate specifically just to have access to not to good medical aid. So if people are seeking to get medical aid in our countries, we shouldn't say no to them. Just out of principles, and obviously see if our medical system is not under pressure. So if we're not treating 1,000 people for of our own citizens, then treating 1,000 foreign citizens is going to come to the same thing. But obviously, there's a capacity to do that, right? There's stockpiles of medicine and stuff like that. One great thing to do also is to have these costs for medical tourists for all these medical services, free medicine, stuff like services they get in the hospital, to make it all free. So, as with the National Tourism Fund, ideally, let's talk in ideal circumstances. Our tourists going out are gonna basically get these like bank cards from the government bank, and there's gonna be unlimited money on them. So basically, this is gonna work as long as people want our money in foreign countries, right? This is in ideal circumstances. There'll be unlimited money on this bank card, so our tourists can just basically do anything that they want for free. There wouldn't be a limit as to how much you can spend. It's just like if you're buying something for 50 euros, and our equivalent is what, 500, whatever. Uh, there's the money isn't sort of pre-created, and there's no limits per person, but it's all just like as soon as you buy something, the money is created and then transferred to the seller's account. Those are ideal circumstances. I think that it would be great because our people don't, they can buy anything they want, they can do anything they want in a foreign country. That's great. But if that doesn't work, then we're gonna have to give our tourists euros or dollars or some form of currency that that is accepted and demanded everywhere. And Obviously, one way to do that is to trade our money in specific contracts from outside and try and get euros and put those euros into that fund. So the government would actually be doing those contracts, and yeah, aviation fuel funds. Those also have to be considered. Basically, all the tourists that are paying to enter our country will have their euros or dollars put into the National Tourism Fund. Final comments. I still haven't talked about, let's say, boats or cruising ships. There's that to consider as well. Um, they will also probably need to refuel depending on where they go. Um, Obviously, their services can be offered for free if the fleet is a government fleet.